throughout chapter 27, we see his life, his passion. And passion. What's your passion? What moves you and drives you? Or do you even have a driving force? Something that determines what you'll do each day. A passion. Someone asked on Facebook the other day, posted, what would you like to be better at this year? And I replied, to preach better, of course. That's the passion that I have. Not everyone has the same passion. Not everyone has the same ministry or calling. The Apostle Paul was called to be an apostle to the Gentiles, a teacher and a preacher to them. So they will learn of Jesus. Nothing else, he said. Said, I knew nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And that's still the message today, above and beyond any dogma that we can, other dogma that we could preach or teach, any other social program that we might endeavor in, or anything else. Our passion is to preach Jesus Christ and him crucified. So Paul, of course, like so many missionaries even today, travel from place to place. Because of the goodwill in the hand of God, I was enabled to go back to Kenya this past December. As I've said before, my heart is for the mission field as much as it is to pastor a church. But God's not called me to be a missionary, at least not now. He's called me the pastor. But Paul traveled many places, and God chose many vehicles to get him to the different places where he wanted him to be. And in this particular instance, he wasn't flying on a Learjet. He didn't have a $1,000 suit. He was wearing manacles, handcuffs, for a good portion of the time that he was traveling here. God had chosen here as the vehicle to get him to where he wanted him to be, to travel as a prisoner. A lot of people might be looking at me now and saying, well, you know, Paul could have traveled in luxury. He could have been on a luxury liner. He could have been, if he had just believed God. That he wouldn't have had to suffer the things that he suffered throughout his missionary journeys. That he could have always been traveling in style. Without any problems, without any hindrances. And of course hopefully we all here this morning know that's not true. Jesus told the disciples and us early on in the Gospels, in this world you will have tribulation. But be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. And in our tribulations, we can still put on the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. When Paul and his traveling companion were beaten, Silas beaten in the Philippian jail and put in stocks in the midnight hour, they began to sing praises unto God. Taking off the spirit of heaviness and putting on the garment of praise. For God was to be praised and is to be praised at all times, in all fashions, in all circumstances. God had chosen for Paul to travel this way. Verse 1 of chapter 27, it says, and when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, They delivered Paul and some other prisoners to one named Justus, or Julius, a centurion of the Augustan regiment. So entering a ship of Adramyttium, we put to sea, meaning to sail along the coast of Asia. Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, was with us. They put them on a ship headed toward Italy because it was Paul's destiny, if you will, to stand before the Emperor of Rome. It was his destiny to be a prisoner in the household there for 3 years. It was his destiny to see many in Caesar's household converted. And the gospel continued to spread not only to the poor, but to the high in rank. And God chose to put him on a prison, or as a prisoner on a ship. The worst time of all to be sailing in the Mediterranean. There were certain storms during that time of year. In verse 4 it says, when we had put to sea from there, we sailed under the shelter of Cyprus because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea, which is off of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra and the city of Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing to Italy, and he put us on board. And when we had sailed slowly many days and arrived with difficulty off of Cnidus, the wind not permitting us to proceed, we sailed under the shelter of Crete off Salamone. Passing it with difficulty, we came to a place called Fair Havens. Now when much time had been spent and sailing was now dangerous because the fast was already over, Paul advised them, saying, men, I perceive this voyage will end with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo and ship, but also our lives. Now, Paul may or may not have been speaking in the Spirit at that time. Paul was a world traveler even at that time, even before his conversion, even before the Damascus Road. It was common knowledge after the day of the fast that there would be storms upon the Mediterranean. Massive, huge storms that would preclude any attempt to sail from one place to another using that route. Paul warned them. And I think it was an issuance of good godly advice. Don't go. But so many times, and so many times that it's almost as certain as the storms, the flesh intervenes and outweighs the Spirit. Verse 11, nevertheless, the centurion was more persuaded by the helmsman and the owner of the ship than by the things spoken by Paul. We're on a journey. We're traveling from port to port in the lives that we live. We're going from one place to another, hopefully according to the will of God. And we want to have a successful journey. We don't have much loss or much difficulty. We don't want to find so much interference that it becomes impossible to do the things that we want to do and the things that God has called us to do. Paul was warning them that if they sailed now, that for certain, that this voyage will end with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo and ship, but also our lives. And there are so many people that we as ministers see over the years, as pastors and those preaching the word,